Hi, this is Savannah,
And this is Brian from the Dorky Diva Show,
and you're listening to Star Wars.
the best place for below average Star Wars.
In a world where people need 80s and 90s movie reviews, two regular Geordies combine forces to bring you the Brother to Brother 80s and 90s movie review podcast. Check them out on Twitter, YouTube, and all decent podcast vendors.
Welcome to Star Wars, best place for below average Star Wars.
Hello there, and welcome to the Star Wars Show, the best place for below average Star Wars. And we're back with a very, very special episode. It's our 100th episode. Aha! And it's also our 3-year anniversary. Yes, it was in August 2019 that we released our first ever episode of Star Wars. It was myself, along with my cousin Alan. Alan doesn't really do the podcast anymore, but without Alan, we never took those first steps. So I want to dedicate this episode to Al. Al, thank you very much for introducing me to Star Wars in the first place, as a good older cousin should. Thank you very much for helping me take those baby steps into the podcasting world. We wouldn't have Star Wars without you. But without further ado, let's introduce the very special team we've got today. My co-hosts are, first up, Jason Hondoling. Jason, how are you? And are you excited for the 100th episode?
I am really excited, and thanks for letting us all be part of this, Pete. 3 years is amazing. You've got 100 podcasts under your belt, and hopefully we got a lot more to come.
I hope so, and I think we do. I think, for me, the podcast gets better every year. For me, the Geordie Jedi Pete, I'm in no way a podcast expert and very much a novice. Certainly won't be able to do the podcast without you guys coming on here and helping out and talking Star Wars with us, which is what it's all about. And I think there's a lot of Star Wars coming up, including a celebration in our own country. So I think, yes, this next year is going to be amazing. Maybe the time between year 3 and year 4, maybe that's going to be, our biggest growth period, hopefully. Kat, obviously, welcome to the 100th episode. Are you excited for 100 episodes, and are you excited to celebrate 3 years of Star Wars, of the Star Wars podcast?
I am very excited. Obviously, I'm sort of one of the newest additions to the team, and I'm really pleased to be here and being able to talk everything Star Wars with you and the team, and to all our lovely listeners. And 100 episodes is such an achievement, and here's to 100 more.
Indeed. I think if we do 200, we should definitely have a Star Wars team holiday to Hawaii, which Jason can pay for. I've decided that's the plan.
Oh,
Great
dear.
plan. Let's take the high ground there.
Indeed. And obviously, our last host to announce, he hasn't been on the show lately. I know he's been working really hard. He's planning his wedding as well. Lots going on. Iain, I refer to you as the Canon Junkie XL because of how much Star Wars canon you read and how much knowledge you have in your head. Always great to have on the show for great insights and great knowledge. Obviously, yourself has been on an episode with Alan before, I'm sure. Obviously, who no longer does the podcast with us. Iain, how are you doing? And welcome back.
I'm doing good, mate. It's good to be back. Like I said, life's been a bit busy at the moment, obviously with work and planning my wedding and all that type of stuff, so I haven't been available as much as I'd like to be. Hopefully that'll change, obviously, after the wedding, after I get married. But no, it's good to be back. I'm really grateful that I come on the show. It's mad that anyone would listen to me talk about Star Wars. I'm just a guy, so it's nice just to come on and speak to everyone about Star Wars, something that we all love. So it's really good to be back.
I think for me, that's one of the most important things about this podcast is that, I've got friends who like Star Wars, like the wife will watch it with us, but they're not really in it like we are. So for me, just having these conversations about Star Wars with you guys is what makes this special. And the fact that people listen to it as well is also awesome. But if we had 0 listeners, I think I would still want to have these conversations with you guys because that's how I get my Star Wars fix. Like I said, it's always a pleasure having you guys on. And like I said, just thank you very much for coming and being part of Star Wars. With it being the 3-year anniversary, with it being the 100th episode, what we're going to do is we're going to focus on sort of what we love about Star Wars and also what we want from Star Wars going forward. So I've drafted up a couple of cool questions and scenarios for us to go through. So we're going to go to you first, Kat. What I want to know is sort of what 3 things are you really looking forward to coming from Star Wars this year?
There's so much still to look forward to in 2022. It's incredible that we're this late into the early autumn and we've still got so much to come. I am super excited for Andor. With each trailer and clip that's being released, I'm only getting more excited just for the scope of this show. Those 9 filming locations, this just looks like Star Wars when you see even these brief trailers. And it's going to be so interesting to see how Cassian in particular becomes the person he is by the time of the events in Rogue One. Showrunner Andy Gilroy stated that there won't be any fan service in this show, and in a way I'm actually pleased about that, because I sometimes feel that writers think they need to do something just to please us Star Wars fans, but I would rather have a Star Wars story as it needs to be told for the characters, and that to me looks like what Andor is going to be about. So I'm really excited for Andor. After that, then it's going to be the High Republic Phase 2. As listeners are probably aware by now, I'm a huge fan of this new publishing endeavor by Lucasfilm and their story group. It's absolutely incredible. Phase 2 now is going to be set 150 years prior to the events of Phase 1, where the galactic expansion has only just begun in the galaxy. So there's very few ways to communicate, and this Pathfinder team's only just starting to get into the frontiers of the Outer Rim. In particular, I'm looking forward to the Convergence novel by Zoraida Cordova and meeting the Chancellor's son, Axel Greylark, because from the concept art, he is quite the looker. And then third and finally, it would be Star Wars Revelations. That's a new Star Wars one-shot comic coming from Marvel by Mark Guggenheim. And it's tying together Aphra, the main Star Wars storyline, Darth Vader, and bounty hunters. And he's promising that this particular issue is going to set a lot of groundwork for Marvel Comics to come now in 2023, and is really going to lay a lot of the storylines down for what's coming in future Marvel publications in their comic runs. So that is really exciting, and that's definitely one I'm going to be picking up.
I'm glad you brought up the High Republic. I finally finished Into the Dark this week, and also finished the second novel, which I've forgotten the name of, by Kevin Scott.
Oh, that would be
The Rising Storm.
That's the one.
Rising Storm. Yeah, absolutely loved them. So I'm excited to. I mean, I've got the Fallen Star here to finish, which is the third novel in the High Republic, as well as a few of the comics and stuff to read. So I'm really excited for High Republic. I'm glad you brought that up. I think you're spot on with Andor and just how crazy that show is going to be. It's going to be like old Star Wars, but new Star Wars. It's taking us in, some characters we know, but then, we're going to see them in different lights and see them how they get to where we see them, where we've seen them before, and just the pure size of the production seems huge. It was a long shoot, a lot of locations, and also we were getting 12 episodes, so everything about this show screams big to me. So I can't wait for that. Let's go to you, Iain. What's 3 things that you are excited for coming up in the next year of Star Wars?
Well, Kat took my first and second one, to be fair. It's Andor. I'm really looking forward to Andor, as most people are. Just seeing that gritty side of the rebellion in Rogue One was really cool to me. Andor is something I'm really excited about. I watched the scene that came out the other day between Cassian Andor and Stellan Skarsgård's character, which was really cool. So yeah, Andor's a thing I'm hugely looking forward to. Same again, High Republic Phase 2. I'll obviously won't go into detail with that because Cat's gone into detail with that. But the one thing that obviously hasn't been mentioned, I'm looking forward to is the third arc in the War of the Bounty Hunters trilogy, which is Hidden Empire, which obviously tells us the story of Kira's plan to try and take down the Sith. Which obviously a plan will not be successful because obviously we know it's set before Return of the Jedi. But I would like to see how that plays out and what happens to Kira. Obviously, in the first issue of, I forgot what the first thing was. The second one that's just finished is called Crimson Reign. That was it. They said that this is a tragedy based on the fall of Crimson Dawn. So I wonder if whether that means we'll see the end of Kira as well, which would be a bit sad if she was obviously killed off in a comic. But I am really looking forward to seeing how that whole trilogy ends.
If she does die, who do you think is going to kill
her? Well, it's looking like she's going to come face to face with Palpatine. So, but well, I would hope they wouldn't kill her in a comic. To be fair, I would hope that we'd have that chance to see her on screen again. But if it's done well and the story makes it, then that's fine.
And obviously, you've said you've seen that Andor scene, which is streaming in front of Rogue One in America, which is re-released in IMAX theaters. Sadly, not re-released here in the UK. Talk us through that scene because I've not seen it yet, Ian. Like, sort of how long is the scene and what sort of nuggets do we get from it?
It was just about a minute and a half. It was just Cassian Andor talking to, I can't remember the guy's character's name in the actual show. It's Stellan Skarsgård. And obviously Cassian has stolen some Imperial gear. And Stellan, I can't spell the name. Basically, his character is to ask him how he did it. And Cassian Andor's like, well, I just did it. And he's like, no. You must have had someone on the inside. No one can just steal from the Empire. And then we get the line from the trailer where Cassian says, oh, you just walk in like you belong. And they wouldn't imagine that anyone like me could come into their house and steal stuff. So, yeah, that was the scene, basically. That's what it cut off.
Fantastic. And do we think Stellan's character is going to be maybe a rebel leader of some sort?
I'm not sure, to be fair. I'm not sure. I do get weird vibes off him from the trailers, obviously. It looks like you obviously see him on Coruscant. We see him speaking to Mon Mothma. Maybe potentially he's a senator or he's someone involved in the Imperial Senate. But no, I am intrigued by Stellan Skarsgård's character.
And Jason, we'll go to you. What's 3 things you're really excited for coming up in the next year of Star Wars?
Well, Kat and Ian only managed to steal one of mine there, which was Andor. So I've come up with obviously one thing that I'm really looking forward to because everyone knows I'm a bit of an animation fan, and that is the next series, Bad Batch. Really looking forward to see where that's going. I'm hoping we're going to see a bit more about what was going on with the cloning, and obviously what the Empire's plans are. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. And then the other passion of mine, which everyone knows, is Lego. So I'm really looking forward to the launch of this year's Lego Advent Calendar, which is obviously 1st of September. Some really cool pieces in that. And I suspect I will be getting it as quick as I can in September and building it as quick as I can as well. But that's partly because I've got a few plans with those models. So stay tuned.
Which Lego minifigures are going to be in the new set that's really got you salivating to get it?
Well, we've got R2 and C3PO with their Christmas jumpers. Previously, Lego have done Christmas jumpers on other characters. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I have got most of them here. So I'm looking forward to those ones. We've also got Vader with another Christmas jumper, which always makes me chuckle. We've got what have we got? got, I think it's Luke Skywalker hanging from the Wampa's doorway from Hoth, and we've got a clone trooper, and I think that's a snow trooper as well. So yeah, there's plus there's some quite cool ship mini builds. I believe I'm pretty sure they've got the Marauder, which that'll be a nice little mini build to go with the main ship that I've already got. But a lot of it this time, looking at it, is related to Hoth, which is really cool, and it really goes well with the Christmas idea.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds like a lot of minifigure value in that set. So looking forward to you getting it. And obviously, good news about you building it early, being a Scrooge, is that you'll tell me how good it is, and then I might get it, might not, depending on what you say.
Yeah.
Obviously, you mentioned Andor. What if there was one thing you're most excited about in Andor? What is it,
Um,
Jason?
I think it's seeing. I'm looking forward to finding out more about the Mon Mothma's side of the story. Because obviously she's a character that has been a part of both the sequels and the original trilogy and the prequels. Obviously, not in the sequels. Um, and yeah, just seeing how she rose up through to lead the rebellion, so to speak. So yeah, that's probably the bit that I'm excited about.
Yeah, I think I'm very excited that it's not just sort of, although it's called Andor, we're going to be seeing Cassian, we're going to be seeing Mon Mothma, the sort of two main protagonists, plus maybe some others. I'm really excited that we're going to see Saw Gerrera again. Um,
Yeah,
just how mad has he gone? I think he's going to be in between where we'll see him in Star Wars Rebels and where we'll see him in Rogue One, maybe. So he's started to get mad, but he's not quite fully mad yet. He seemed to be breathing a bit better in the clip that we saw than what we see in Rogue One, if that's anything to go by. But I think fantastic that we've got Forrest Whitaker back to reprise that role. So that's Andor, that's Lego. Did you see a third thing, Jason?
the Bad Batch.
Yeah, sorry, the Bar Batch. Obviously, with the Bar Batch, rumours are that it's moved out of its slot sort of this autumn. Have you heard
Yeah,
that? And what's your thoughts on it?
I'm hoping it's still going to appear. Um, uh, I I thought I'd seen somewhere that it is still coming through. But it's one of those things that obviously there is so much going on in Star Wars at the moment with the different television series, that stuff's shifting all the time. We've even had um, Andor shifted slightly. So, fingers crossed. I'm hoping we're going to get it this year. Um, it makes sense to me that they'd slot it in between Andor and The Mandalorian. So I'm hoping that maybe that's where it'll come in. But time will tell. But it's just a series I'm really looking forward to getting back into.
Definitely, I think the way season one ended with the sort of the what was happening, how the sort of mass genocided Camino, but they took the scientists away to that Imperial base, and what were they going to be doing there? Was it going to lead into the Emperor cloning and Emperor looking into how he survives Return of the Jedi, or how his soul survives anyway? Is it going to tie into that? Who knows? Is it going to tie into Baby Yoda maybe and cloning there? In the facilities we see in the Mandalorian, who knows? But there's a lot of open doors that it could link to, which is obviously really, really exciting. I think for me, the things I'm looking forward to the most, I think, I've already said Andor just because of how big the production was. All the shows we've had so far, have been sort of, no more than, 8 episodes a season, some of them 6 episodes a season, filmed a lot on sound stages, which is fantastic, looked great. But this Andor show, like I said, it was a big, long shoot on a lot of different locations. And we're getting 12 episodes in the first season, and then we're getting a season 2 of 12 episodes as well. So it just screams huge and vast, which I'm very excited to see. I think High Republic, as I said, I've finished those books this past week. I've been on holiday, finally got some reading time, and I absolutely loved them. I'm excited to go with that. Kato, did you say that phase 2 of the High Republic is going to be like a prequel?
It is going to be a prequel. So the High Republic Phase 2 is going to be set 150 years prior to the events of the High Republic and the ending of the Fallen Star.
Oh, so essentially it's sort of copying the Star Wars trilogies where it's going to be like present time, then the past, and then the future.
Yes, basically. So it's going to go back in time. I think what it's going to really set is some of the history of the Nile and how they come to be such a threat during Phase 1 of the High Republic. And then I'm presuming that Phase 3 is going to be set after the events of the Fallen Star as the Jedi try to rebuild, basically.
Well, I haven't read Fallen Star yet, so don't spoil any of that book because I'm not going to start it straight away.
No, spoiler-free zone, but a lot happens at the end of the Fallen Star that will need addressing in Phase 3.
So, just to clarify, though, I did read, obviously, The Rising Storm. Got very upset halfway through the book. When there's a passage written a certain way, that makes you think that that Loden's going to die. And then Loden doesn't, and he escapes, you know what I mean? Because he kind of breaking down, and then that ending just destroyed us. Where I was just like, I'm glad. I had like another Star Wars book to read straight away after it, but I couldn't. I had to sort of digest the ending of The Rising Storm.
Oh, Cavan Scott really did a number on us with that ending. And then he rubbed salt in the wound because the High Republic comic series starts with the ending of The Rising Storm, and there is an actual comic panel of the ending with Loden, and it's really, really heart-wrenching.
Which comic's that one?
That's the High Republic, the High Republic series by Cavan Scott with art by Alio and Indito.
In which issue? Is that the first issue?
Yes, that should be issue number 1.
Okay. I have to check that out. I've got the trade paperback somewhere, so I'll have to read those. So yeah, Andor, High Republic, and then I think for me, Star Wars Celebration. I cannot wait for that to come around. I know it's technically next year, but it's within the next calendar 12-month period. So I'll class it. So I'm really looking forward to obviously all of us meeting up in person and seeing old friends who I've not managed to see in a while with the pandemic and things like that. So I'm excited for Star Wars Celebration and really getting to mingle and feel all the Star Wars buzz and the Star Wars adrenaline that you only get at Star Wars Celebration. So I'm very, very excited for that. Speaking of, we've been talking about Star Wars futures there. Let's talk about the Star Wars past. We'll go to you, Iain, first. What's your 3 favourite things you've enjoyed from Star Wars since 2015? And I know I'm saying 2015, that's when The Force Awakens came out, but really sort of your favourite Star Wars things since the Disney merger, really, sort of in the new Star Wars world. Because I know Star Wars Rebels came out before then, so that would be allowed to be talked about, if that makes sense.
There's so many to narrow it down. I've tried to go a bit different. I don't want to. Obviously, The Mandalorian was massive and all that type of stuff. But the first one I've gone for is the Darth Vader comic series by Charles Soule. I thought that was tremendous. Charles Soule's one of my favourite Star Wars storytellers, and his Darth Vader comic series was absolutely unmissable for anyone who loves Star Wars. It is a tremendous story. 25 issues. I've got all the trade paperbacks. And it's just a tremendous story. Tells the story of Anakin Skywalker, obviously Darth Vader, straight after the events of Revenge of the Sith, and it goes into stuff like how he gets his first lightsaber, how he gets his first Sith lightsaber, how he builds his fortress on Mustafar, and yeah, that is just a tremendous story that is told by Charles Soule over a 25-issue comic series. The second one I've gone for is Rogue One, because I just love it. I love Rogue One. obviously it's setting the table now for more stories being told with Andor. But I just remember coming out of the cinema after Rogue One and thinking, wow, especially the last 45 minutes was just mind blowing. Just the battle scene of Scarif, the Death Star, Darth Vader coming in at the end, obviously Leia, unbelievable. And my third one is the opening night of The Force Awakens. I'd never been to a midnight premiere of a movie before. Obviously, it was the first Star Wars movie in 10 years, and it was just the best atmosphere I've ever been to at a cinema. Everyone was so excited, and it was just the best time ever to be a Star Wars fan. All the hype was, and then for me, the movie delivered as well. So it was a great night. I got to the cinema about 3 o'clock in the morning, but it was well worth it.
I'm glad you brought up that Darth Vader comic series because I absolutely loved that as well.
Yeah.
Is that the one where we get the Jocasta New storyline as well?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, obviously it tells Jocasta Nu. Obviously, everyone knows as the fairly uppity librarian from Attack of the Clones. She is someone which you wouldn't think was someone Palpatine fears, and the reason he fears her is because of the knowledge she holds. She basically holds all the knowledge of the Jedi Order, and obviously she was able to escape Order 66, and then she comes back to the Jedi Temple to try and obtain something. I won't say what, just in case no one's read it and hears this and wants to read it after that. But no, yeah, that's a really good arc. Someone that obviously is looked at. But after I read that comic series, I never looked at Jocasta Nu the same way. I was like, she's legit, if you know what I mean.
She's badass, 100%.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite parts in that comic was when the Imperial investigation team, should we call them, are trying to figure out who's been there, and then like Vader puts the ship together. And it's obviously a Jedi interceptor, like Jedi starfighter.
Yeah,
and he's like, "You guys are idiots." I love that. But yeah, I love that Darth Vader comic series. I'm really glad you brought that up. Absolutely fantastic. Rogue One, fantastic movie. I think one of my favorite lines in Rogue One was when the man calamari asks for the Hammerhead Corvette, and we get that awesome sequence. Love that so much. Kat, let's go to you. What's your 3 favorite things that have happened in Star Wars, sort of since the Disney takeover, since Star Wars came back?
Oh, well, I mean, first one is easy. Kylo Ren, the creation of that, my favorite ever character, and everything that's happened to me since becoming such a Kylo Ren fan. Most of my sort of quote jobs unquote for blocks, Jedi News, even you have all come about because of my love of Kylo Ren. So I have a lot to thank for that. Then I'm going to say The Rise of Kylo Ren comic series by Charles Soule. It was only 4 issues, but it was absolutely amazing, and it gives such an insight into his character that you just don't get in the films, and it really laid down so much more, especially for him as Ben Solo rather than Kylo Ren. And I remember just reading like every issue so excitedly, and I have every comic cover variant for that series because I loved it so much. And then I'm going to say Star Wars Bloodline by Claudia Gray, which was my first Star Wars novel that I ever read, and I was absolutely obsessed. So the story follows Leia as she is sort of uncovering a plot within the Senate, or with a particular senator, that's leading to a group of warriors that are linked to the beginnings of the First Order and their sort of rise to power. Within that, there's a subplot of there's a possibility that Leia could be elected as Chancellor. And it's quite a political novel because it's dealing with Leia and she is a senator. But it has so much very relevant ideas, and it really made an impact on me when I read it. I still remember it, and I've listened to the audiobook beautifully narrated by January Lavoie at least twice now, and I highly recommend that as anybody who loves Leia's character. It's a fantastic read.
I think, yeah, I loved Bloodline. I think some of the two things I loved about it, number one was sort of we see a lot of political Leia, which is fantastic. But then we also tie into a sort of a Leia's reputation sort of underground as the Hutt Slayer. So not only is she this sort of strong, powerful leader within the government, then she's also like feared and respected in the underworld as this Hutt Slayer. Which I thought was fantastic, sort of dual identities going on there. And then sort of this sort of dials into Kylo Ren and Ben Solo actually was also that moment when the truth comes out in the Senate about who Leia's father is. And who, who Darth Vader is. And my mind straight went, this is how Ben Solo's going to find out about that when they should have been upfront with him, probably. And that's probably one of the things that, again, pushed him towards the dark side. Probably a lot of questions about that. And again, he was aware of Luke. And it came out the blue. Do you know what I mean? Like, if it's something you're not scared of, then, then you should have told him about that. Obviously, Kylo Ren, you mentioned Kylo Ren. He has a question for you, Kat. I know that in some of the art of the Last Jedi books, there was some concept out of Ben Solo bald, shaved head with the scar. Would you rather have Ben Solo like that, or the Ben Solo we got in the movie?
Oh no! All the hair. No. Those concepts. I'm glad those concepts stayed in the book because I like my Star Wars characters with really good hairdos, and that applies to absolutely everybody, whether you're a Rhodian dancer for Jabba the Hutt or whether you're a Knight of Ren for the First Order.
Is this why you don't believe in droid rights?
Oh no, I totally believe in the droids.
I'm joking.
No, that's a bit unfair. Okay.
I'm joking.
All Star Wars characters need good hair unless you're not an organic life form.
Good rescue. So that was Kylo Ren and Bloodline. Was there a third thing that you said?
Yeah, the Rise of Kylo Ren comic series by Charles Soule. That was an absolute stand-up for me.
So am I right in thinking in that comic we see the same station from Into the Dark?
We do. Now, this is something I pointed out. It's actually time-stamped on Jedi News, where I did an article and I pointed this out before it sort of became clear that it was the same station. But no, so the station in Into the Dark by Claudia Gray is the exact same as drawn by Will Sliney in the Rise of Kylo Ren comic books where Snoke is residing. So that actually links over 250 years of Star Wars canon, which is mind-blowing. And it's sort of good to actually see it in the comic because because Star Wars is a sci-fi, a lot of what is described in the novels can sometimes be a little bit hard to imagine, no matter how well it's described by the author. So to actually see the art really does help if you're reading Into the Dark.
I got the impression that maybe some of the station's not there anymore as well, because the way it's described in the book is, the bits where the garden is match the comic 100%. But then there were some bits in the book that mentioned other areas that we didn't really see in the drawing, if I remember correctly.
I think it was hit by that. Wasn't it hit by a radiation storm at the end, though? So I think it could have been changed by that.
Yes, the solar flares at the end of the book, yeah. I've just literally finished it this week, so correct. And obviously, there was no Drengia left, hopefully, in that when Ben Solo was there with Snoke.
Or hopefully not. But you can actually see, you can see skeletons within the artwork of the botanical gardens inside. And it does have this very ominous feeling in the artwork. You've got these sort of roots tangling into each other. Charles Soule was part of Project Starlight when the Rise of Kylo Ren came out. He would have known exactly what the station was, whereas all Star Wars fans didn't until the High Republic was announced. So it was like a little sneak peek at what was to come, and I think that's why it ended up sort of being quite this dark place in the comics, which it needed to be, though. Snoke's there. There's no way Snoke's some friendly gardener.
Snoke and his lovely hat. Love it. This might get addressed in the Fallen Star, so if it does, just tell us it does, and then don't spoil it. But obviously, reading in the dark and the Drengir and the sort of the protection set up to keep the Drengir at bay, it makes it sound like the Drengir may be arch enemies of the original Sith, because they mention fighting people with red blades, not these people with like colourful blades. So if the Sith were scared enough of these Drengir as to sort of encapsulate them with the idols, obviously they're quite a force to be reckoned with if even the Sith fear them. Would you say
They
that's
are.
fair to
They
say?
are. There's sort of there are like a horror element too, in the novel. They're not really further addressed in the Fallen Star. No, they are addressed in the High Republic comic series by Kevin Scott. There's about 3 interconnected arcs within that series where the Drengir gone into more detail and sort of what happens after the events of Into the Dark.
Yeah, because you're reading in the dark when so I got shot into space, I thought they just die in space. But obviously, you start reading the Rise and Storm, and they're obviously not dead. If that makes sense. So obviously can survive space. Maybe are the Drengir from elsewhere? Do you think?
I think the Drengir are so tough that they could probably definitely survive space. And they've sort of managed to populate many worlds before sort of being dormant for quite a long while. And that's basically where the High Republic comic series goes, in the fact that the Jedi are looking for the Drengir homeworld, which they have to find via various means, which I don't want to spoil. But it's a very, very good comic arc. There's actually a sci-fi series. It's a young adult series called The Aurora Cycle by Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman, and it's actually there's like a plant enemy in that series that's very similar to the Drengir. So, if anybody wanted like a younger sci-fi novel to read after Star Wars of a similar vibe, there is that book.
Fantastic. And Jason, we'll go to you. What's 3 things that you've really enjoyed? Your 3 favorite things since the Disney acquisition of Lucasfilm and Star Wars?
Yep. Well, my first one is the most obvious, and I think it's already been alluded to. And that is Star Wars Rebels. Obviously, prior to that, we'd had Clone Wars, which is an amazing series, and we've since had the satisfactory conclusion to that. But for me, Rebels created a story, and it was 4 seasons where we got to know completely different characters who did interact with a lot of characters we already knew, but these new characters became someone that we cared about, and it was a new Star Wars story. Um, you had young Ezra Bridger, excellent Jedi character. You had Kanan Jarrus, whose story since it has grown and his eventual demise was just heartbreaking. Um, you had obviously Harrison Sandula, who's become another major character, really, and we know we're going to see a lot more of her. You had Sabine, again, brilliant character, and brought us back to the story of the Mandalorians, which we all love. And then you've obviously got Zeb and Chopper, who finish off the family, so to speak. And Zeb, for me, just cracked me up with some of the stuff that he got up to. He was the purple walking carpet in my mind, but he had a voice and attitude to go with it. And then obviously Chopper was just completely different to R2D2 in many ways. Although I think in some ways the way they've taken R2 in other stuff, he's become almost very similar to Chopper. But no, I just love that series. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the Ahsoka series when that finally lands next year. Because it certainly looks like a lot of that is going to revolve around the story that we were left waiting to hear at the end of the series of Rebels. So that's one big one for me. That was real. It reignited my love of Star Wars, I think, um, which is a big thing. Then we've got what have I got on my magical list here? The other one is The Mandalorian, which I know we sort of mentioned. For me, that again, I loved all the films. The Mandalorian, what John Favreau and Dave Filoni have done for me is they've created a universe that again similar. It's in Star Wars, but it's a story in itself. But it's been brilliantly done, brilliant acted, brilliantly production. Production values. It's like watching mini movies. And I think that's been a big positive at keeping Star Wars alive. So I've really enjoyed that. Really looking forward to the future of that. Although I'm going to put this out there. I think it's drawing towards the end of its shelf life. And I'm hoping that, and I'm pretty sure with Dave Filoni, he's going to do something with that series that will have a clear arc and a clear story, um, which I'm looking forward to explore a little bit more. And then my third thing is actually sort of just the whole it's more of a fan thing for me. Obviously over the last 4 or 5 years in particular, getting involved with Jedi News, getting involved with this podcast, going to the conventions which I'd never done before, always wanted to, but also seeing behind the scenes, getting to know the guys like the UKG, Droid Builders, Mandalorian Mercs, Rebel Legion, um, and the Silver Sabers, obviously. All guys, I've made so many friends all through the last few years of Star Wars, and really what's come out of the new Star Wars that we're getting. And I think that probably the biggest bit of that sort of experience was when Kat, Steve, and myself got to go and walk the blue carpet for the Rise of Skywalker. And although a lot of people hate it, for me, I love that film. It has its flaws, but that was a very, very special Star Wars moment, seeing the end of the Skywalker saga, um, getting to shake hands with J.J. Abrams and Kathleen Kennedy, and just being there for that experience, knowing that we were sat in the same theatre as the likes of John Boyega, Daisy Ridley, and Oscar Isaacs. It was an experience that's come about from my new love of Star Wars.
I think obviously Star Wars animation is one of mine. So I think you've talked about Rebels there. Really well. I think Star Wars animation was something I'd seen till I started watching Star Wars Rebels after The Force Awakens came out.
Yeah,
I loved the storytelling in Star Wars Rebels. And actually, watching Rebels made us go back and watch the Clone Wars, which I loved as well. And I think if you look at
yeah,
some of the overall story Rebels is fantastic, but just like some of the highlights, if you take the season 2 double finale, Twilight of the Apprentice Part 1 and Part 2, the storytelling there is just some of the best Star Wars storytelling, full stop. And like stories like that really captivated me. And then if you look at that last 4 episodes of the Clone Wars final season, how it tied into sort of Revenge of the Sith and tied into what comes next, I thought was wonderfully, wonderfully done,
Yeah,
powerfully told.
definitely.
So yeah, I think Star Wars animation's up there for me. I think Mandalorian. I think you bang on. I think Celebration Chicago when they sort of me and Alan, obviously co-fan of the podcast, were lucky enough to be in the panel, and when they showed some of the footage and it was like the monkey lizards being cooked, one in the cage or one's being cooked, and the stormtrooper heads on spikes in the cantina, and it felt really, really Star Wars, but felt really rustic and really like dangerous, I would say, in a way. It was really captivating, and obviously the series has delivered since, and delivered even more with Book Fett, and obviously with the Ahsoka series to come. So those are two of mine, and I think finally, I think just the entire journey into the Last Jedi. I think Force Awakens came out, and we didn't really know what to expect, but the Force Awakens set up a story of what was happening in the Star Wars galaxy, ended on the cliffhanger, and then it was a case of what happens next. Because we've got a clear, what happens next is Rey meets Luke, and how does that go down? And then I remember just the whole journey going into the Last Jedi was fantastic. I remember when they first released the title, and it was in the Star Wars writing was in red, and then, like they released it on Twitter. And I remember I was on the metro, like a public transport up here in Newcastle, on the metro traveling, and it dropped, and I was like, oh wow, like it's red writing. You say that to someone like my wife, she's like, well, it's just red writing. What are you getting excited about? But it's like, no, the connotations of that, like it's powerful, simple but powerful. And obviously that trailer when we see Luke and he's like, you see Rey and it's just breathe, and it leads into it's time for the Jedi to end, and what were we going to see going into it? And it was a time where sort of we knew where we'd just been, so therefore the next step of the journey was like blown our minds almost. So I'll never forget that. And I remember watching it opening night and then coming out the theatre just speechless, sort of almost like this. The film had almost like not knocked us out, but just like, I was in sort of a hallucinogenic daze. And I went to watch it again the next morning before I even started to sort of comment on it. Like that's how powerful that movie was for me. So the whole journey up to it, and then the movie delivered in a way where, like I said, no movie's done that to me since. Like, has knocked me where it's like, you're in a daze until you see it again, and you actually then sort of form words about it. So that was just fantastic for me. So we've talked about the future, we've talked about the past, the things we enjoy, which is what Star Wars is all about, enjoyment. We try to be as positive as we can here on the Star Wars show, unless it's about stupid Hasbro making stupid daft decisions. But let's think about the future again. So we'll go to you, Iain, first. I need one actor and one actress who hasn't been in Star Wars who you would love to see come into Star Wars, and why.
I'm going to go with, because I've literally just watched House of Dragon, I want Matt Smith in Star Wars. I've just obviously seen the first episode of House of Dragon. I've always rated him as an actor, and obviously there was the whole, he was going to be in the Rise of Skywalker rumour mill, but no, I think Matt Smith would be tremendous. I could see him playing a young Palpatine potentially, or something along those lines. He has that type of range. But yeah, Matt Smith for me. The actress was hard. The one I really did want to come into Star Wars was Jodie Comer, but obviously she was cast as Rey's mum. I would love her to actually do something in Star Wars, like as Rey's mum. I think that'd be a really cool idea.
Am I right in thinking that with Matt Smith, he was announced on the official press release, wasn't he, for Rise of Skywalker, and then obviously was then not involved?
I'm not sure about that, to be fair. I don't know if Kat or Jason know anything about that.
I don't think he was. I think there was a lot of toing and froing, and it was more rumours. And I think so many websites put it out that he was on the press release that it became commonly thought that he was. But I think a lot of it was just wishful thinking from fans. Um, but yeah, I'm pretty sure he wasn't in that one. What about you, Kat?
Yeah, I agree. It was basically sort of fan speculation accidentally turning into fact when it wasn't. There was nothing ever officially stated about him being in Star Wars.
It's
I have
crazy.
to agree with Ian.
It's crazy how like hallucinogenic it gets, isn't it? When like, because I mean, this is obviously a false memory, but like, obviously back when all the rumors were going on about Matt Smith, obviously I remember when they released like J.J. Abrams coming back. It's called The Rise of Skywalker. It's going to be the end of the Skywalker saga, and then name the people in it. And then in my memory, for some reason, I can remember Matt Smith's name being mentioned last, but it's obviously just my memory looking back, and obviously all that talk was going in the background at the same time, and it's sort of morphed into one joint memory when it's actually two separate things happening. Um, that's just how much Star Wars captivates us, I suppose. Kat, let's go to you, an actress who hasn't been in Star Wars, who you would love to see come into Star Wars.
Okay, so for an actor, I would love to see Simu Liu from Shang-Chi in Star Wars. I recently rewatched Shang-Chi and it's such an underrated Marvel movie for a start. But two, he absolutely carries the role so well. He carries the whole movie so well. And I think he provides some great representation alongside the likes of Donnie Yen. And he's a skilled martial artist, so I could easily see him in like the role of a rebel or a Jedi even. So I definitely would love to see him in Star Wars. As for an actress, I literally could not think of anybody, but I am watching Only Murders in the Building at the moment, and Selena Gomez is really good in it. So I'm just going to put it out there. I want Selena Gomez in Star Wars.
Good choices, good choices. Jason, let's go to you. Who's your two?
Right. These are both actually Marvel actors who've worked very closely together. Um, but for me, I'd love to see Scarlett Johansson in Star Wars. I think she's a brilliant actress. Um, I could even see her playing a Sith sort of thing or Imperial, so something a bit darker. But yeah, I really like her because I think she's just a brilliant actress. And for the male actor, I've come up with Mark Ruffalo. I think it's Ruffalo. I can never get it right. But again, the way he's brought the Hulk around and the way he can do serious, he can do comedy. I'd love to see him as, sort of a roguish, almost Han Solo type character. But again, I think he's got the versatility that he could do pretty much what they wanted him to do. So for me, that's two actors. The only thing with Mark Ruffalo is you would have to watch him because he's well known for leaking stuff when they don't want him to.
Yeah,
So
Avengers
yeah,
Endgame, the press tour for that. Oh my gosh.
was that the one where he forgot to switch his mobile off?
That's the one where he stated, "Oh, everybody dies."
Ah, yeah. But I thought it was. I'm trying to remember which one it was where he was face. They asked him to FaceTime or do a Facebook Live just prior to the movie premiering. So he did that, switched his phone off, or put his phone in his pocket, not realizing he'd not switched off the feed. Went and sat in the theatre and basically beamed half of the film, and his phone apparently was going mad in his pocket because people were texting him trying to tell him that it was going live. And in the end, they had to send someone into the theatre and go and tell him to switch his phone off. But apparently, Kevin Feige actually turned around and said to him, "That was the best piece of marketing we've ever had." So,
Yeah, I always took him and Spider-Man's stuff, where it's like, oh, the swirl things, he. But it's like, it's not really, is it? It's much more of a publicity stunt. I think it's like
Yeah,
they're not getting fined because they failed the NDAs. Like, do you know what I mean? It's a bit
no.
more tongue in cheek, funny character bit of work for the interviews, isn't it? I think.
But apparently Mark Ruffalo is very bad with technology.
Yeah.
And he plays the Hulk, Bruce Banner, who's like this. He's supposed to have 7 PhDs.
I know, it's great. But and I don't know if you've seen him in the latest She-Hulk series, but again, I think he just steals scenes when he's in it.
He's brought so much warmth and empathy to the Hulk, and I agree. In She-Hulk, he is amazing.
So for my two, for the actress, I'm going to go with Florence Pugh. I think she could portray many different things, but I think she would be a fantastic, like high up Imperial, or even
That was
a low ranking Imperial who's then rising through the ranks. I think if you put her in a uniform, I think she can look mean and really sort of mean the business of the Empire.
definitely. That was my original choice, and I changed it.
So yeah, so Florence Pugh, because I think she could play someone on the good side as well, but I think she would look the part as an Imperial
Yeah,
officer, 100%. And then the other one is I think this guy is probably for me, one of my favorite actors around. He doesn't really do much anymore. I think he's an actor who, if you give him good material, he really gets into it. He commits fully. I think he could play. He could be a high up Imperial. He could be a Jedi. He could be a warlord. He could be a bounty hunter. He could be anything. And I think if you give him a good enough story and script, he'll proper commit to it. And that's Viggo Mortensen, who played Aragorn in Lord of the
yeah,
Rings.
Oh wow, yeah, good choice.
I think
yeah,
if you look at some of his roles, where if you look at him as Aragorn, I think he can 100% come in as a Jedi. He's an older guy now, so you probably bring him as an older Jedi who's probably got a hippie feel to him, but really cool. But I think you can tidy him up, tidy his beard up, tidy his hair up, put him in imperial uniform, and he could be a high ranking moth. He could play a crime lord, a warlord. Like I said, he could play an older grizzled bounty hunter. I think he's a guy who can be anybody he wants to be. And I think I would love to see Viggo come into Star Wars with a really sizable character that he can chew on and really give us a performance that we know he can give. So yeah, Viggo and Mortensen for me. I would love to see come into Star Wars.
yeah.
Moving on from there, more feature stuff. I want to hear from you guys which director who hasn't worked on Star Wars so far would you love to see come into Star Wars and direct something. So we'll go to you first, Iain.
This is hard because I'm not really following many directors. So the one thing I did say was I would like Bryce Dallas Howard to get her own Star Wars film. I said her episodes of The Mandalorian have been my favourite, and yeah, I would really like Bryce Dallas Howard to get a film. I know that's technically not
Yeah.
what we said, but I can't really think of a director offhand that I would want in Star Wars. So yeah, Bryce Dallas Howard film would be top for me.
What about you, Kat?
I'm gonna say Matt Reeves because of his work on the Batman and the fact that he just wrote such an amazing story that was different to previous Batman films, yet it had all the feel of Batman and it adapted some of the best DC comic Batman runs. So I would definitely like to see him tackle like a big Star Wars movie. I think he would definitely do it justice, and I think he would sort of absorb the source material really well.
And you, Jason?
This is a hard one because a bit like Ian. Um, Bryce Dallas Howard. Um, I was actually thinking, and I know strictly speaking, he's already done it, but I would actually like to see Ron Howard take a film from the very beginning, preferably a sequel to Solo, and not have any interference because I think as a director he's so good that he could create a magical Star Wars film. But as he's already done it, I'm trying to think of the name of the two brothers that did the Avengers films, was it the Russo brothers?
Yeah.
I think they could do something very different, maybe with the underground side of it. So those two, I'd quite be interested to see what they could do.
So for mine, I would love to see Kurt Sutter come in and produce and direct something. Obviously, one of my favorite TV shows, The Shield. He's a big part of that, and then obviously, of course, the hit Sons of Anarchy and Mayans. Obviously, his creations as well. I think he could come in and really sort of really flesh out some underworld type stories. I think his shows I want to be quite graphic and sort of R rated. I think because they're set in our world where drugs are a certain way and taken a certain way, and violence looks a certain way with machetes or knives or guns. Where I think you can do all that in Star Wars. It's blasters, it's lightsabers. So you bring the rating down straight away because there's not going to be any blood. Um, drugs in Star Wars, it's spice, it's smoke and stuff like that. So it's not going to be as graphic as heroin, for example, and needles. Um, Plus, the way things are injected in Star Wars is different. So I think it wouldn't necessarily have to be an R-rated series to be serious, if that makes sense. Because
Yeah,
the things that are in Star Wars would bring the rating down naturally. Like, look at how violent Rogue One was, fantastic war movie, but because of how it was, it comes out at a 12A, PG-13, whatever it is, available for all the family, as opposed to Saving Private Ryan, where it's like limbs getting blown off, and it comes in at R. So yeah, I think Kurt Sutter, I think you would love to see him get his teeth into something Star Wars related, just because I love his work on the Shield. It's one of my favorite TV series of all time. A TV series that has, the final season's called The Final Act, and the show has a clear structure. And I bet the network were clamoring for more Shield, and they were very much the team were like, no, like it ends here. Vic Mackey's story ends here in the way it does. Sons he ends it in a certain way. You know,
yeah,
and I bet FX again would have been crying out for, oh, let's run this for our 5 seasons, and it's like, no, like this is the story. This is where it ends for Jackson Terra. So yeah, I'd love to see Kurt Sutter come in and direct something for Star Wars. I think one thing I would love to see do, I would love for George Lucas to come back and just do an episode of something. So he doesn't need to come in and write it, doesn't need to come in and, but I'd love for him to come in and direct an episode of one of these shows that's coming up. I think that would be wonderful as one last sort of hurrah. I don't know what anybody else's thoughts are on that.
yeah. I do wonder with George now, though, if he's personally sort of closed the door. Although I know obviously he's been involved um, uh, briefly in bits and pieces. Um, but I have to admit, after watching, and I just kicked myself for not mentioning it earlier on, the Industrial Light and Magic documentary series. I don't think George wants to go back now. I think he's done Star Wars.
Maybe I think if the episode was right and he could come in and do it, I think I would love for George to come in and just direct. You wouldn't have to tell anybody about it. You could just like literally when the episode airs, like directed by George Lucas. I think that would be
That'd be
fantastic.
cool.
Yeah, definitely. He doesn't need to run the show. He doesn't need to like be the showrunner. I think if you've got a series that's 12 episodes, then can George come in and do one? I think if you wanted to, yeah, definitely. Um, but yeah, that sort of brings an end to sort of all the things I want to talk about on our 100th episode. Again, I wanted to focus on sort of all the cool things that we've experienced since Star Wars came back, and also some cool things that we would love to see happen in the future. Before we sort of go into the end of the show, we'll start with you, Jason. This is a curveball because I haven't prepped this for it. What's one bit of Star Wars merchandise that's not available yet that you would love to have?
Oh, that's so difficult because there's so much of it. Um, I And they are available, and I am tempted to get it, but I know they haven't done it in like I don't think they've done it in the Hasbro range, and that would be Ezra Bridger's lightsaber, with some sort of working blaster mechanism as well.
Very good choice. Very good choice. That would be wonderful to have in the collection. Kat, what about you?
Oh, I'm pretty predictable. Ben Solo Black Series figure.
Yes, Ben Solo Black Series twin pack, where you get Ben Solo in the jumper with the blue saber, and you get Rey Jedi Knight with the yellow saber twin pack. Charge us $60, and we'll all buy it.
I'll buy free, as I keep saying. If there's any Hasbro representatives listening, I will buy free. You have purchases already in demand.
But what they will do, though, is they'll give us a new clone that has a colour yellow on it, probably. We'll have a new price point of like £32.
Oh, how about another Boba Fett repaint?
Yeah. Ian, what about yourself?
Oh, no, it's a difficult one. I'm just trying to think now, off the top of my head. I would love to. I'd tell you one thing I would love, but they won't do. They'll never do. Is a 6-inch gaming greats Galen Marek Starkiller figure. But we've got a gaming greats line, but it seems to always be troopers. Stuff they can obviously repaint and that. And now the fact that you haven't got a Galen Marek Starkiller or Basta Lashan or any of that, how you don't have those figures is beyond me. But I don't run Hasbro.
I mean, those figures would sell. They're the figures that are going to be fantastic. I think, those are figures that I probably would pay a higher price point for as well. Like, for the fact I'm getting a brand new figure and that from a really cool, from different gaming series that, are long gone but are still in people's minds. I think, Galen Marek will make it great. Make him a convention exclusive then, if you're going to do it.
Yeah.
But there's room to do that, I think. Yeah.
Like you said, double pack. You have Jedi Knight Starkiller, and then you obviously have the Sith Stalker Starkiller. But I've been saying that for a while now. It doesn't seem to be.
I guarantee if you released the Starkiller pack, right, in the Black Series 6-inch line, right, and say it had 3 different versions of Starkiller in it, right, with all the accessories, you could release that and charge £80, $80 for that, and it would sell out. We sold out straight away. Like, you make money on it, but it's they're not doing that at the minute. But I suppose there's a long time to go, and there's conventions coming up, and maybe they have got cool stuff planned. I think.
Yeah, they released the random Zabrak from Jedi Fallen Order in the line. I'm like, gaming great, really? Okay.
And then for me, I think, as I said before, I'm in the middle of moving house. Hopefully, solicitors are dragging the feet a little bit, but I think once I do move and get set up, and it'll probably be next year now, but I do want to get myself a bucket, a nice helmet for the room to go in the decom. So what that'll be, I don't know. I'm torn between Kylo Ren and maybe a Mandalorian of some sort.
The Death Watch one is class. I'd like to buy that one. The Death Watch one is sick.
The one I really want is the Trapper Wolf helmet. I really, really want that.
Is that the X-Wing helmet?
Yeah, the one Dave Filoni, the replica of Dave Filoni's one from The Mandalorian.
Is that happening? Is that being released?
It's I'm not sure if I think it's due out soon, isn't it, Kat?
I have no idea. Hasbro annoying me so much nowadays. I don't even keep up with the releases.
All right, I'm gonna have to have a look. I know it's coming out. It's definitely. Let's have a look. Savvy. Other retailers are available. But it just looks awesome. Obviously, they've done quite a few X-Wing pilots. It's a usual repaint of an old style, but it's the fact that it is Dave Filoni's Trapper Wolf. I'm gutted. I didn't press the button to order the figure either. So yes, it's actually out. £135. So I might have to wait a while.
Yeah, that'll get reduced. I'll just wait like that to just be patient.
But it does look awesome.
And I think one last thing to me that I want to highlight is that obviously just the return of not just Ewan McGregor to Star Wars, but Hayden Christensen. I think back as Vader, back as Anakin. I think fantastic in the Kenobi series. I think great to see Hayden back with a smile on his face. Really enjoyed it. You know, us kids who who were around and watched the prequels. You know, we can speak now. You know, we're adults. You know, we can talk on the internet. We can write articles. We're now the journalists. You know, we're now the people talking about and reviewing these things, and those guys are feeling the love for those movies now, and I think they're loving it, and I'm glad that we've sort of had a prequel renaissance over the past year, and long may it continue. Like I said, it's great to see Hayden back and happy, and doing some fantastic work as well, and long may it continue. Kat, any closing thoughts or anything we've talked about, or anything else Star Wars related before we wrap it up?
I think ever since the acquisition of Disney, we have been totally spoiled with Star Wars content, and it's just been a great time to be a Star Wars fan and being able to talk about it, write about it, geek out about it on Twitter. It's such a wonderful community to be part of, and it's wonderful being able to share our passion with listeners, readers, and however we interact. There's been so many highlights since 2015. It's almost impossible to recount them all. And I have so many fond memories because of Star Wars. And I'm just thankful for Star Wars every day when I hit my BB-8 alarm clock.
Oh, that sounds like an awesome alarm clock. Jason, any closing thoughts from yourself?
Yeah, like I said earlier, the last few years have been great for me because of Star Wars. Um, Although there's been a lot of stuff that hasn't been so great, so that's balanced it out. And I've got to personally send out a thanks to Dorky Diva, Savannah, and Jedi Brian, because through their podcast and through the sort of group that they had going together, I managed to meet you, Pete, and find out about your podcast. And obviously, it's been great over the last year and a bit, um, getting involved and watching you build this up to what it's becoming. And I'm looking forward to continuing the journey with you and Kat and Ian and seeing how far we can take Star Wars into the next century.
Very well put, very well put. And yourself, Ian, any closing points before we wrap it up?
Just like I said, I'm happy to be on the show. I really am, and I'm just looking forward to Star Wars Celebration next year. It's my first one, and I can't wait.
Yay!
I can't wait.
Indeed, Star Wars Celebration is going to be wonderful, and I can't wait for all of us to be together in person. Speaking of Star Wars celebrations, you've mentioned Savannah Kiefer. There, Jason, I met Savannah Kiefer at Star Wars Celebration London in 2016. I think, we sort of met in a queue to get into the first day of the convention. We struck up a conversation, ended up hanging out quite a bit that weekend, and got a lot of advice from. It was my first celebration. Obviously, she'd been to a few, and I think from there on, without that meeting and becoming friends with her, and then obviously listening to a podcast, the Dorky Diva show, along with Brian Balance, I don't think I would have wanted to make a podcast. I think, it was sort of them doing their thing and seeing how sort of happy they were talking about, the things they loved is what was infectious and made me want to do it. So big thanks definitely to Savannah Kiefer. And obviously Brian Balance as well. I think one of my favourite Star Wars podcasts that I've listened to over the past 3 years is Sky Talkers by Charlotte and Caitlin. I think it's one of the best Star Wars podcasts out there. Certainly better than this one. But listening to them and listening to how good that is and how much I enjoy that is what makes me personally strive to make more and get better. So definitely check out Sky Talkers from Charlotte and Caitlin because they are the best at what they do. And I think somebody else who, is positivity and can-do attitude who rubbed off on me when I met him in Star Wars Celebration Orlando and also in Chicago. He's a friend of mine now. We talk a bit. He's guest on our podcast a few times. Is Daniel Berry, and again, like thanks to him as well. For his sort of infectious enthusiasm to Star Wars and the podcast and giving advice where needed and stuff like that. There's times I've reached out to him and he's replied straight away. So again, sort of there's other people as well, but obviously those are the main people. And obviously, again, can't stress enough. My cousin Alan. We started the podcast together. He's the guy who got us into Star Wars, and again, without him, we wouldn't have done episode 1. Not to mention episode 100, as we are here today. But no, I think on to the next 100. We've got a great team. Myself, Jason, Kat, Iain. I think we are the Fantastic Four, the Four Musketeers. I don't know any of that great fours. The Ninja Turtles. There's 4 of them.
Yeah, definitely.
So Bagsy Raphael. He's my favorite, by the way. D Generation X had 4 members, as did the 4 Horsemen. So if people like wrestling, there's a few there. But no.
ABBA, that's another 4 I can think of.
Beatles. I'm showing my age.
Who did you say, Kat? Sorry.
ABBA.
Right.
Gotta have some Mamma Mia.
Well, without George Lucas, they wouldn't be on tour right now because his company, Luke's ILMs, is what done the live show on it.
Such a small world. ILM basically has invented every technology that everybody now relies upon.
My wife Louise hates me, so something will happen, and I'll be able to, more often not, I can talk it back to I'll be, that wouldn't happen without George Lucas. And she'll be, how do you mean? I'll be like, well, the company that's done that was started by him. And just like, right. Like watching a Taylor Swift documentary, which was fantastic. And then it was like all the post-production sound was done at Skywalker Ranch. I was like, well, that's George built a house, so like without that, this wouldn't be getting made right now. There's loads of ones, any Pixar movie, George started Pixar.
Yeah.
If you talk about Photoshop, I think it's done on Photoshop, George didn't create it, but he hired the people that did, and they created it, while working at ILM. So yeah, that's one of my favorite things to do is tie things back to George. My latest one is obviously Lewis Hamilton didn't retire because of George and his wife. Speaking to him,
yeah,
that's my latest. But let's wrap it up. Jason, where can the people find you on social media?
At Hondo Ling as usual, or at Jason Ling Photography.
Kat, yourself?
You can find me at Kat Kylo on Twitter. Always happy to talk Star Wars and anything Kylo Ren.
Iain, yourself, mate?
You can find me at Star Wars Iain on Twitter.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Geordie Jedi Pete. You can find the podcast on Twitter at Boars Star. And you can find the podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Star Wars Podcast. So please check it out. If you're listening to us on Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, please take a moment, leave us a top star review, leave us a nice comment, nice little review. Again, only takes a moment. We really do appreciate it. It helps us get found more and also helps us in booking guests. If you're listening on a podcast platform that's not those, but it allows you to leave a review or rate the podcast, again, consider giving us a top star review, whether that's 4 or 5, how many is the maximum. And again, a nice little comment really does sort of A, makes our day, and B, helps a lot of people find us. But that is all from the Star Wars 100th episode, 3-year anniversary extravaganza. I'm glad we just talked about the things that we've loved about Star Wars over the past, since the takeover in 2015, and I love the fact we've talked about what we're excited about going forward. I think this is the golden age of Star Wars. We're very spoiled, as Kat said earlier, and I'm excited to talk Star Wars with you guys going forward until there's no more Star Wars, which will never happen. So it means we're stuck with each other to continue talking about it. Maybe we'll do like 500 episodes. But no, thank you very much, team. Thank you very much, listeners. And remember, always tell that to Kanja Club.
Hello, Star Wars listeners. This is Savannah Odit. You might know me as host of The Dorky Diva Show with my co-host Brian Balance. I am also producer of The Adventures of the Zolan Dart, which is a Star Wars-inspired audio drama that we produced over the last year. If you love stories about smugglers, courage, heroic characters, and maybe a few foes along the way, you should go to thedorkydivashow.com and listen to The Adventures of the Zolan Dart today.
Shout! We've got your pigs.
Were any of the critters harmed?
What did you do now?
I didn't do anything. I just freaked out for no reason.
It was nice doing business with you again. Maybe next time we could deliver something less temperamental.
Now, what you call temperamental, I call fun.
Hey, is there a place nearby where I can make some repairs?
3 clicks south of here, you'll find a small spaceport. They should have what you need, as long as it's nothing too big.
Dynamic class? My stars, you don't hear about many of those still being space-worthy.
It's been in my family for a while.
She's pretty great. Any chance you have a hover cart we can use to load up?
I'll check out the HoloNet to see if anything new has come up in the sector.
My name is Sereth Khan. I am the chief here on Kamai. My people and I have been experiencing food shortages as of late due to unforeseen natural occurrences. We are looking to hire someone.
I say we take this one. The pay is great, and it's the type of job we're familiar with.
Welcome. You must be Captain Otoa. I've already sent word to Pac 2 to expect you in the next cycle or so.
You told him we were coming before we even accepted the job. That's rather presumptuous, isn't it?
Perhaps, though once I received confirmation that you were interested and on your way here, I couldn't help but hope.
Fair enough. Well, we'll be back as soon as we can.
Well, that's not good.
Is that blaster fire I hear?
So you're the one.
Captain, it sounds like they want to do this the hard way.
I love when they got some fight in them.
This is bad. This is bad.
We're about to have a lot of company.
I'll see you soon.